I'm deadly serious.
근데 지금 진짜로 이상한 게 뭔 것 같아.
All right, welcome to the Spoiled Onion Show. I'm your host, Brandon, and we have, I hate to say guest. Am I even the host of this thing?
Ooh, I don't know. Are you?
What do I even
think
call
you're
myself?
more qualified than I am at this point.
The only reason, that's Joyo, by the way. Say hi, Joyo.
Hi, everybody.
That's Joyo. The reason I started this off is that today, this episode is nice and special for me because I recommended the movie we're watching today, which is the foreign South Korean film titled Parasite.
Yes.
Won an Academy Award for Best Foreign Picture and won Academy Award for Best Picture. It's the first of its kind from what I understand. I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong on that.
No. It is definitely the first film to win, first foreign film to win the Best Picture. And it won Best Foreign Film as well, so that's kind of a first. An interesting first.
Right.
In the same
Okay, yeah, the same movie, the same thing, which of course had controversies behind it, but I have to say that regardless of all of that, this movie, to me, I absolutely love. I didn't know if I would like it, because the first I've heard of it was because of its Academy Award controversies, and I thought, well, let me take a look at this thing. And so when I did, wow, I did not regret it. I did not expect what we were given. It was awesome. What do you think, Joseph? First impressions.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that this is my second official foreign film I've seen. And as a kid, I wasn't exposed to them. Because it's almost like, I feel like in our culture, sadly, you have to work hard to watch a foreign film. Which I think that's changing due to this winning. Yeah. My first one was Roma. This is my second one. And both times I've watched a foreign film, I felt such a fresh perspective that I haven't seen in American filmmaking. And it's exciting, and it makes me want to watch more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to some foreign films, especially from Asia, when it comes to Chinese cinema, maybe some Japanese, but I hardly ever watch South Korean things. And when I was coming into this one, I was already used to the idea of subtitles, but sometimes it feels like there is a barrier, of course, in the American audience, that, well, if I don't see them speaking in English, and if I'm having to read subtitles and hearing them speak another language, for some reason I don't even want to bother, and I don't know if it's going to be a good quality product. That somehow affects that. All the other countries are perfectly fine handling our English-speaking movies, but when it comes to America, it might have to do with the fact that we have so many movies produced in America that the idea that we would just allow every really good movie from every other country to flood in here, it might oversaturate the market with so many different types of movies. And over there, though, they'll take only the best, essentially, of what is American content, or the most famous or popular, such as your Disney movies, your superhero movies, and you won't get too many of the lesser known ones over there if you don't think they're going to make a profit. But it's even worse in our case, for where you're not just going to get any old Korean movie over here just because. All right, that takes a lot of money, and it has to be a really, really good story. And Parasite, just simply because I think its narrative speaks deeply and is such a good example of how one can use metaphors and cinematography to tell a deeper story of what would perhaps seem simplistic circumstances and make it into something very, very big in the person who's watching it, as big as the characters that are experiencing it. And that is why I love Parasite.
Yeah, and I mean, I think just the fact that it did win Academy Award and did get a lot of exposure is showing, kind of this renewed interest in foreign films. I think there was a period, earlier or mid 1900s where foreign films had a lot more clout, and then now we've lost that a bit, and we're returning more towards this idea of diversifying what we watch by experiencing these films, from different countries. And even you touched on the dialogue thing, and it's definitely it definitely a different movie watching experience because you're almost more focused because you have to look at the dialogue while you're watching the visual image, which means you're more engaged in the film. And then on top of that, just the different ways of approaching acting and speech patterns. And I know we'll talk about this, later in this podcast, but it's just such a unique experience. And I think we need more of that. And I think we're headed that way, which is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I like other foreign films such as Ip Man, which was a Chinese film. And I was exposed to that because I just loved the choreography of the fight scenes and it got me interested. And of course, the only reason I think that even was popular was because, it is the master. This is the story of the master of Bruce Lee. Now, those movies are exaggerated, and there's a lot of different versions of the characterizations of.
And they get worse, is what I hear.
Yeah, well, it's yeah. I simply expect that after the first one, which already had a whole lot of inaccuracies, I was like, you know what, this is just a ride. This is just a ride.
He's a superhero after
nothing
after
about
3.
this is true. Mike Tyson is a character. In the night, this does not make sense. It's just Mike Tyson.
Well, even some of the choreography in those films just gets like really far fetched.
Oh yeah.
In the latter movies, it's like,
you saw it?
A second. I have not. I saw a breakdown of fight scenes from the different films. Yeah. But I need to actually sit down and watch the movies in their entirety.
I like the Ip Man movies, and I don't know if I can. That of course is Donnie Yen. And so I've seen a few of the Donnie Yen movies. But yeah, I think that there's probably some really good gold nuggets here in these Korean film industries and all that. Because I get to see none of the best over there because all we're concerned over here. And what they might value from their cinema may be very different than what we value in our cinema. And what's marketable over there and value and cherished over there is different than what's over here. So to get that and see it, might add that nice old, ooh, that's nice, that's different. Kind of like food. It's like, ooh, that's nice and different. Korean food, Chinese food, different than my American food. And it doesn't necessarily mean that one is better than the other. It's just different. And it's exciting. It's exciting in that way. Well, let's talk about the plot. Let's go through this plot. Because even though it seems like a simple story.
It is a very odd plot.
Yeah. By the way, spoilers, duh.
Yes.
Duh.
This is a spoiler area. Well,
why should we have to tell you that?
listen. If you haven't seen the movie and for some reason you don't want to be spoiled, then our consensus is you should go watch the movie.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think was going to happen? You clicked on a podcast titled "Spoiled Onions" for Parasite, and you're thinking, "Oh, this won't talk too much about the narrative of the movie." No.
All right. So is it really? I had this discussion with someone, and they're like, "Oh, it's not actually about a parasitic bug like you would think."
Sure.
And I was like, "Is that really what you would think?" I don't know. I didn't necessarily think that. But anyway, that's just
that somebody would think it would be about a parasite, like
apparently
something
that
killing people.
Was the thought. I don't know.
Well, when I first saw it, I thought that because I heard from other people calling it that it was like, oh, it's like a horror film, but it's disguised in the trailer. I'm like,
that's what I've heard too.
You look at the poster and you see all of the promotionals. You'll see somebody laying down and their feet exposed, and you're like, is that a dead body? What's going on? So you're assuming that there might be something else going on, but you don't know. You can't tell what's going on with the plot and the story simply by the trailer.
Yeah. That's another discussion I had too. Like, it apparently, I didn't see marketing because I didn't really hear about it till after it became a thing. But apparently it was advertised as like a horror-ish film, which is weird to me. Like, why wouldn't you just advertise it like it is? Because it's not a horror film.
No. Yeah, it made it like it showed all the normal aspects of the plot, and then it teased ideas of the horror aspect or something like that. So, and there's weird. Not much there. But there are moments for where you get frightened of the circumstances, right? Like, what? And we'll talk about that when we get into the plot. But it's like, I think that from the start, I knew that it wasn't probably talking about some sort of parasite, as in like that of a disease or something like that, like a parasite, something intruding like that. I thought there might be more going on there, but I didn't know. I didn't know. And as I watched the movie, I came to realize that, of course, this is not talking about just that, right? But I love the title. I love the title too, because there's a whole lot of, even throughout the film, different examples of what it means by parasite. So let's start off this plot, right? I'm going to refer to these people as sons, fathers, and wives and whatnot, because you basically have the Kim family and you have the rich Park family. There's not many other characters. And I kind of like that with this film, is that it's very, very closed in. Kind of like Whiplash in that sense, for where you don't need too many characters. You just need interesting characters in order to hold up the narrative of the story, and it makes it a lot more raw once you do it. So we start off with we're introduced to the Kim family. They're just hanging out in their house, really poor. They're so poor that they're living in foreign countries such as Korea. There are taxes in many places for where they'll tax you with the height of your own building, because you don't have infinite land. You don't have as much land in Korea or in Japan like we do in America. So even the height of your housing will be taxed, right? So a lot of people build underground. They'll bury a house into the ground so that it makes things even cheaper. And in their case, they're even underground level, and their window is actually the street level. They're so poor that they're holding on to whatever they can here and there throughout their entire house, and you can see that. Even when they go to their toilet, they have to go up a staircase to reach the toilet, which is at ground level. So needless to say, these are very, very poor South Koreans. They're not homeless, but they're just getting by with the bare minimum that you can to sustain a family. All of them are unemployed. The son has been trying again and again to try to get into college, but keeps failing his tests. His sister is wanting to become an artist, but can't afford any lessons to do so. And the mother was a really good, what do you call that sport? When you swing the metal ball. Well, she was once an athlete and was even a medalist in that, but clearly those things must have sizzled out. And the father, well, there's nothing to say about that from what I can remember. It's the father. But they're walking around and they're just trying to find the Wi-Fi, and they're even leeching off of what they can of their neighbor's Wi-Fi until they can find even another Wi-Fi. When they can't connect properly, they're like, well, we got to get some money. Have you checked your WhatsApp about the job? The pizza box folding job. So they're all, as a family, folding up these pizza boxes one after the other. And you just see throughout this film subtleties of conversation and actions which are trying to build up what is the underlying message here. And here we have an example for where there's these stink bugs in their house, and this guy is gassing the streets in order to get rid of them. And they're like, no, keep the window open so we can get rid of the stink bugs. And then all this gas is fuming up, and everybody's getting sick and coughing, but the father is just sticking through with it. Even that scene alone has a lot that's being said, but we'll come back to that. At this point, they didn't do as good of a job with the pizza folding boxes. The son is reasoning with the pizza girl about how, hey, we can work this out. In trying to find another job. And later on, one of his personal friends show up, giving him an opportunity in which he can be a tutor for a rich family's house. So he, before he leaves, of course, he gives him this rock, which is supposed to be some sort of charm for good fortune, And they think, wow, this might be the good opportunity where things are turning around. Huzzah. So he gets dressed and he becomes a tutor, and he visits this rich Park family's home. And he's not necessarily the most intelligent man, or maybe even the most qualified, but because of his friend wanting it to be him to look after her while he's gone, his friend wants to date this daughter of this rich family, and so he's like, I want it to be you, right? He qualifies naturally, looks over a painting of one of the rich family's sons, and he pretends to be a little deep about it, like, oh, so, is it a monkey? And she's like, a self-portrait. He's like, oh, I see, right? But then something clicks in his head, which follows up a domino effect throughout the film, for where it's like, wait a minute, my sister is a good artist. I might be able to get her into this if I advertise the connection. So he pitches it to the mother of this rich family, saying that I know this woman, as if it was just a friend and not a family member, that is really good with this stuff. I think he said that she was like an American, studied in America, art therapies and whatnot. And he thought that maybe this would be a good idea. They set it up. He brings her. They've practiced, and they have all these false personas in order to make themselves look more qualified for this rich family. Obviously, it's all a lie. She goes in, and using their own, wits and their scheming techniques, are able to trick the mother, essentially, of the family, but soon enough the father, that they are qualified in this position. They're not family members. Why? They're just connected. And she solidifies that job as an art therapist. She goes on with the plan when she's riding home from, what do you call those people? People who drive.
Chauffeur. The
chauffeur. She ends up taking off her panties and making it seem as if they may have had an affair of some sort, but really it wasn't them. What it came off as was that the father, when being driven home, found it and thought, oh no, he's having sex in my car with stranger women or something like that. I can't keep this guy around. Oh no, which is exactly what the Kim family's daughter was trying to do, is to try to jeopardize that man's job to potentially give her father that position, which is exactly what happens. And same thing continues, where the house lady is also put in a position for where it's like, oh no, she has the disease. This could be bad for your family. It could be bad for your kids. Oh, but I know someone. And that's how the wife ends up becoming the housekeeper for the rich family. So you have Kim family, who's now established all of them as basically these replacements to what were these other housekeepers and tutors and whatnot, for the rich family. And at some point, they're living good. They're getting paid really well. They convinced him of all these things. And one day, the rich family's son, it's their birthday, so they're like, well, we're going to go camping. Watch over the place. We'll be back. So the Kim family all go in there, and they're living in there as if it was their own house, right? Enjoying the luxuries of the rich life. But then suddenly, the old housemaid comes in, knocking, saying, hey, can I come in? I left something in the basement, all beat up looking and whatnot. And at this point, truly, the tone of the entire movie shifted. Like everything before, where it was nice and bliss, you're almost rooting for these poor people, for it's like, yeah, get that money, right? Yeah, get it. Out of nowhere, when this poor woman goes down to this basement area, pushes out the wardrobe, I believe it was, that was hiding the doorway that led to the bunker. As you're going down this staircase into the cement-walled room, you too are like, what is happening? What is this movie? I thought this is going a completely different direction. And the housekeeper has her husband living underneath this house because he's trying to hide from any loan sharks. They're so in debt that they'd probably just kill him. So she's been having him live under there without the rich family knowing. It was all secret. And so the Kim family's mother, the new housemaid, is just like, this is crazy. I am calling the rich people. She's like, no, please, we can work this out. Can't you? We're both needy people, all right? And she's like, no, I am not needy like you. And she's like, but we're both of need. But that's when the rest of the Kim family accidentally fall down and are exposed. And so the old housemaid is just like, wait a minute, and starts recording. It's just like, I see what's going on here. I see what's going on here. Sorry, my headset is acting weird. I see what's going on here. You guys all know each other? Were you working together, scheming this out? Nobody move, or I'm sending this video over to the rich family. So they're all literally captured, put to a corner because her thumb's on the button to send it over. And the old housemaid and her husband are just enjoying the luxuries now, whereas they were the Kim family a minute ago. Suddenly, the Kim family just tackled them, and rubbing peaches into this woman's face whom she's allergic to. And once they get a phone call suddenly from the rich family's mother saying, "Hey, we're on our way back. The whole place has gotten flooded by the rain. We're not going to be able to do it. We'll be back in a few minutes."
Yeah.
So now they're rushing and throwing these guys back down into the basement in order to prepare things and get everything situated so that they won't suspect anything. And in the last seconds, the family is hiding. The Kim family is hiding in the rich family's house, throughout their house, to not show that they're all there and taking advantage of the place. Well, while this happened, Kim family's mother, the new housemaid, kicks the other old housemaid down the staircase and knocks her unconscious. And the husband was there to witness all of it as she eventually dies. The family ends up successfully hiding themselves throughout the night, but they also overhear from the father of the rich family how they gripe the bad smells of the Kim family, of the father, and how it's like, oh, it's like a subway, right? Really making them feel little. And the housemaid of the Kim family is able to stay overnight, but they escape. They just barely escape the rest of the Kim family as they're running home, and everything is raining, and it's a flooding throughout the entire city, and it all goes downhill to the lowest point. Well, that's where their house is. And they get home, and their house is completely flooded. The window wasn't shut, and they're gathering what they can out of their house, and everything has been ruined. They had to sleep in some sort of disaster shelter. And the father gives him some little bit of advice, which is that don't even make a plan. It's better to not make a plan because it'll never happen that way. Just like our house, right? It is, you make a plan and something else completely happens. What's the point? You might as well just do whatever you're going to do and not even bother making plans ahead of time. So they're obviously in a cynical position, disgusted, hurt, drenched, completely dirty. But the mother has a great idea, like, you know what, we're going to celebrate our son's birthday here with a big old grill out. And look at how beautiful it is outside after the lovely night of rain. It's made a beautiful day out, right? They're completely oblivious to the disaster of what has happened in the rest of the city because of their social class. But then again, the Kim family felt that entirely. It's just, oh man, this stinks. This hurts. I'm tired. I'm wet. I'm all this stuff. And but they go back to work because they don't want to compromise. But over and over again, the rich family keep making gestures that imply the idea that the Kim family's father smells bad, and that offends him so much because it's just like, oh, you rich people, looking down at me being like a poor person, even though they can't tell that he's a poor person. Soon enough, during the party, the Kim family's son goes on ahead to check on the old housemaid and her husband down in the basement to see if they're okay. And when he goes in to see, he suspects that he sees the dead body of the housemaid, and the old husband, in an angry, vengeful spite, goes ahead and attacks him and tries to choke him out and all this stuff. The son escapes for but a moment before ending up getting choked out and getting the rock of good fortune smashed into his head. He runs out and goes on what would be attempted killing spree, first killing the daughter of the Kim family. And before he could do anything else, the mother is fighting him, stabs him with the shish kebab-like sword. And the father is threw the keys or something like that to the car to the rich man's father, and went ahead to try to stop the old husband from the housemaid from doing any more damage. But upon seeing the rich father put the gesture of the covering his nose again from how bad the other guy smells, this infuriates the Kim family's father so bad that out of random rage, I shouldn't say random, it's not random, but out of such rage, he goes ahead and kills him and runs into hiding from what he's done in recognition of what he had just done. And only the mother and the son were able to escape, but upon investigation, they were found out. And, I should say that the son did recover, by the way, from the rock. Somehow he survived. And the story essentially ends for where I don't know if they were charged with something or not. I don't know what might have happened, but either way, they do end up going back to where they lived before. And the son would scout out the old rich house that was now bought by a new family. But he saw the lights flickering on and off from controls that were in the cellar, the shelter. That was a message from his father in Morse code, and he writes it down saying how this is where he is now. And that this is where he belongs. His son ends up writing out a letter that he plans to send out to his father in there, basically saying that I'm going to work so hard, I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to save up enough money that I'll buy this house and you'll be able to be free again, and I'll do it. And it shows the imagery of all this, only to have the camera pan down that it wasn't the actuality of what would occur, but just the vision of what he wrote in the letter as he sighs and the camera fades out to darkness. And that is the movie Parasite. So woo! I just gave you, it's kind of hard to talk about. It's probably the longest plot synopsis we've had in this series, because every little dink has significant impact to what is going on in the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Oh. All right. Well, why don't we dive in a little bit on... Yeah, I think the most notable thing for me in watching this film is that shift in, the second half of the movie. It's just... And I was talking to a friend about this. It's just so off... It catches you off guard so quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen a movie where the pace changes so... And it's almost like I'm watching the first half of the movie, and we're gonna break down cinematography probably in a minute here, but just the way everything's shot and the way everything's paced and the way the music is incorporated, it just lulls you into like this pattern, because every family member has their initial coming into this rich family's house, and it's like repeat. So you get into like this pattern, and you're like following the movie, and then boom, it's just like all torn out from under you.
Yeah. And
then it just goes like haywire. Like, when you get to the part where everyone's getting killed, it's like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
And I think, frankly, for me, that's both a strength and a weakness of the plot. But I think ultimately it works out for something that's just totally unexpected, yet still cohesive enough to be interesting.
And it's beautiful because, such as playing with the title of the film Parasite, it is definitely commentating on the circumstances of the country of South Korea, and you can relate these things to other countries too, but specifically in South Korea, it's the gaps of wealth is even more extreme, one could say, than that of America. Mm-hmm. And what's even worse is that, as this movie goes to show, is that in Korea, oftentimes, even for simple jobs, I say simple jobs, but things when it comes to businesses and where you are corporately and the opportunities are a matter of connections and not oftentimes a matter of education. And even when you're wanting to get into education, it's a competition so strict, right? Just like with the son, he's not an idiot. These people are not stupid, but they're not given the right connections. They're not given the proper opportunities in the same way that it is maybe even America, for where it's like it's a matter of just hearsay. Oh, I like this person. Oh, have you heard of this person? And you end up getting a job from a rich person. It doesn't seem fair. But you also find that while these people are taking these routes, there's even a lower they are acting like a parasite on the rich people, for where I'm depending on your wealth in order for me to survive, and I'm taking advantage of you and manipulating you in order to be a richer person myself. I am sucking off of your wealth. Even worse are the people all the way down in the lowest class, for where they don't have a home, such as in the bunker, for where the man is so in debt and is running from the loan sharks that he's surviving in a cemented wall that is underneath the house of the rich family. And even they, as a family that was needy, have no empathy for them because they're just so low. So it's just a continuous downhill staircase, for where one class looks down on one class, and there's not an empathy given in there.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, no, I think it'd definitely be ignorant to miss the social commentary that the director is trying to express.
Yeah.
And I think, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where foreign films are refreshing because it takes us out of our own cultural bubble and shows us, okay, this is actually what a different part of the world looks like. And the film adheres to it's a very fantastical narrative, but it adheres to what South Korea, is like to an extent.
Yeah.
And, especially when you get into the flood and where they lose their house and they lose everything and they still have their jobs, but now it's like, it's almost like their jobs start to become so fake and so filled with lies that when they lose their house, it's like they lost the only thing about them that's real.
Right.
And you feel that. But yet that's an actual problem that they face in that country, overpopulation, living in difficult, poor conditions. It's not something we face as much in America because we've taken steps for that. Right. And I think it's instructive to see that and to experience that, even though I might argue that, and here's my big thing about the plot. I think the plot is great. I think it's the right amount of redundancy and pacing with crazy twists. But I think, especially when you get into the second act, things like the flood, while they do add to the story, also tend to distract from the narrative. And I think the only flaw I really see in this film is that the director starts to lose his focus in the screenplay, in the storyline towards the end. And I feel like everything is just kind of going in different directions.
Well, I think where the story was simply a narrative, was starting off as a narrative of entertainment purposes, the moral or perhaps his social commentary of what he's trying to express ends up taking precedence over what the narrative could have been. Because, I mean, honestly, when I finished the film, I felt a little sad. A little sad because it's like the daughter died. That made me feel bad, and the father is in a terrible, terrible place. And actually, it seems hopeless. It does seem hopeless that the son is not ever actually going to get to that point where he can free his father. And they're all just, everybody has lost. And and so it seems like, well, this isn't supposed to be an uplifting film, so therefore it seems like it's trying to leave some sort of message. Well, the flooding, I feel like the depiction of what's trying to be said in there is that he's giving off a final representation of how, the higher up you are in society, literally, the less you can even, not only do you not look down, you look down upon those who are below you, but you don't consider. It's not of your concern the problems of the people down there. When it rains, when it's raining like crazy, your inconvenience is, I can't go to the park now. Back to our home. We'll just host a party tomorrow. And you'll look out and say, what a beautiful sunny day. Look at the rainbow. You can't see the flooding that just destroyed hundreds of houses, and it's not your concern because it's not your problem. But to the people who are down there who know nothing of what you're experiencing, we just got flooded. People have died. We lost everything we had. And it's because we don't have the resources to be able to overcome these kind of things. Well, as you do, and there's nothing that's going to change it because you don't care. Even for them, they know so little about their own workers that when they tell them lies, it's like, okay, yeah, sure. They care so little about where they've been in the last day or the floodings that had occurred that when they come back, that they don't ask about it. They're unsuspicious because they're so concerned in and of themselves. And, just going off of what the director had said, regardless of how people feel about the issues or the solutions to the issues, he was also wanting to make a commentary when it came to global warming things, in that he was saying that richer people will not experience the effects of these potential disasters in the same way that the poorer people will. For a rich person, it's like when a flash flooding occurs, it's like, oh no, well, poor them. Well, of course you don't care. It's not your problem. But it is our problem, yet your decisions are making an impact that will cause us to have this problem. Anyways, you were about to say something?
No. I totally agree, and I think that's just it. I think he was trying to make successful at that, at making a social commentary on the situation. However, what I've heard and what I think is very true is that as a storyteller, whether you be a visual storyteller or a writer, whatever the case, your job is to tell the story first before you push a moral or an agenda. Because if you reverse that, if you try to push the moral and agenda and then build a story around that, it's just not going to work. Because it's going to be like sadly a lot of Christian films where you get shoved a message in your face and there's really no substance to anything that's happening.
Right.
And I feel as if in this film, the first half of the film excellently shows storytelling that isn't driven by a moral, but instead is driven by a story, a plot, and then the moral is shown in key dialogue moments, key actions. But then, sadly, I feel as if the second half of the movie switches that role, where the story is built around the moral or the social commentary, and I really do think it suffers. And if I may use an example, I think the entire plot line of the lady and her husband in the basement and him being poor, that entire plot line is so inessential to telling the story. And honestly, for me, very distracting, because it's like, okay, why is he there? Okay, we understand why he's there, but it's just so weird and it's so disjointing, and it takes me, it almost forces me out of the story. Then I have to kind of shove my way back in to figure out what's going on. Yeah. We talked about Whiplash before in a very different way. Whiplash is such a complete story because it never takes its focus off the two main characters.
Right.
I think this movie takes its focus off the rich family, poor family dynamic by throwing in this other family, and then the flood is in there, and then everyone gets stabbed, and it's like, okay, yes, this is cool. Yes, this is good, but it's getting ruined a little bit by almost a pretentious way of approaching storytelling.
I think you're right when I think about it, is that the narrative is exchanged. It's almost like you were tricked.
Yes. The narrative that was totally enticing and successfully enticing played a part in keeping you enticed by the time we've gotten to the social commentary aspects. That was more of the focus in the second half of the film. When I was watching the beginning, I did not think that it was going to go in that direction. I thought the advertising was just a trick, and the title was just being funny, and that this movie was honestly more like a comedy. It was more like a comedy.
It did feel like one.
And I thought the plot was simply going to be like they're going to get themselves in a really tricky scenario, and they're going to have to be super smart to keep themselves fixed, that they end up in a better scenario at the very end. I didn't expect it to then out of nowhere, because the plot really did shift 180, the focus 180 into a whole nother direction. And I think it's because the director did want to give off that feeling. But part of me does wonder, like, what would that movie have been if we didn't have that plot? That, you could still show that those morals, maybe not to the same extent, and I don't know if it'd be even as effective through the narrative that was going on. But could you imagine a movie like this existing and it going the whole way through simply between the dynamic between these two families? I don't know what would happen. But it is interesting, because I hadn't thought about it like that, Joseph. I wonder. But would it have been as popular?
That's a good point. I don't know. I think maybe the craziness made it popular. But for me, watching the first half was great. Like, it put me in this zone of, I am really enjoying this movie.
Yeah.
That doesn't always happen. And then the second half of the movie put me in this zone where I'm like, I felt like I was playing catch up. And I didn't understand. I mean, I did understand. I just didn't feel like I was enjoying the movie experience as much. And you could say, oh, well, you just didn't like the social commentary. I don't know, maybe. No, I'd actually argue I did appreciate the fact that he's addressing these issues. I just think I think I said it again, I'll rehash it. The first half of the movie is excellent storytelling in that it lulls the viewer into this pattern that fully captures their attention. And then the second half disrupts it to the point where it's like it's constantly begging the viewer's attention back. And it is what it is. I don't want to keep rehashing this, but I think that's the major fault.
I guess it's like you could say it's almost as if like the first half is more enjoyable to the viewer.
Yes.
Not that it's more meaningful, not that it's more anything, blah, 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 blah. But that there's the experience, what I'm feeling when I'm watching the first half was more enjoyable of an experience and which was, and was much more, taking my focus to have to watch this movie and wanting to see another scene. Like, please play the next scene. Please, let's do another scene.
Yes.
Like, I want to see more of it. The first half does that more perhaps than what happens in the second half. Like, obviously, if somebody just got hit in the head and that's when you cut the camera, then I might not say that. But it's like a book, if you will, for where it's like if I ended the chapter at the end of a certain scene, I might be less enticed somehow than with the simple things that were going on in the first part because I was just so intrigued by, wow, how are they going to do this? Interesting. And the second half had a different plot altogether. Which, of course, they're saving their tail, but it's not really that either because they did save their tail. And the father even compromised that, and there was a lot of things that were compromised and ended up becoming a different story in order to give off that commentary, which I think is effective, but overall it's not going to be as enjoyable while watching as when you were watching the first half.
Yeah.
I guess that's how I could word it. Even though I still like it all. It's like that feeling that I got in the first half is not the same feeling that I had in the second half.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, it's a good film either way, I think. I just think for me personally as a viewer, and this is different for everyone, it might have been more enjoyable had he stuck to a more cohesive plot. But, whatever. He did. I mean, he got Academy Award in Best Director. So I don't know if we're exactly qualified to say that
I hate
he
to
did
say
anything
that,
wrong, but
I hate to say that it might be that these social commentaries they love that at the Academy Awards.
Yes,
they like that thing,
Well, it's political correctness,
Well,
but.
Right, and that's the thing is like so certain movies will be propelled while others are not. I don't want to think that the director purposefully did that just so that this movie could be propelled even further. But either way, I still love it. I'd still give this movie even an A. But before we go to any sort of rating system, let's talk about the camera work. Let's talk about the cinematography.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I am so excited. Allow me to begin because I am like a little schoolboy. How does it say it in Frasier? Romping through the fields in Surrey's. I'm excited. Yeah. Anyway, I think the moment that I got the most excited was a shot I have never seen in any film before, and it's where I think her name was Kim. Well, no, wait, that was her last name. I don't know. The art inspired daughter. Yes.
Yeah.
Is talking to the wife/mother, rich mother,
right.
and about her son and his artistic talent, and she says, "Did anything happen to him in first grade?"
Yeah.
And then she shrieks. And what happens is you get this over-the-shoulder shot, very common shot, but over-the-shoulder shot of the mother's face. And she holds this like scared pose, and the camera moves behind the head of the daughter to the other side. So the shot begins looking over her shoulder at the mother. Mid-shot, you go behind her head, and then the shot ends where it's practically the same shot, but the other shoulder. And what it does, and what every shot, in at least the first half of the movie does, is it creates this like idea of intrigue. And that shot is the best example because at least 60% of that shot, you're not seeing the mother's face.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And instead you're seeing the back of the head, which is extremely uninteresting.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what the back of her head looks like.
Right.
And I've never seen that technique used. And I think this film almost invents new camera movements to not scare the audience like it might have advertised in the trailer, but instead just build your curiosity. Right. I mean, there's even shots from like aerial shots that just, it makes me curious as to what the what the characters are doing, more so than just a normal shot would do. And I think that's why at least the first half of the film, and the second half as well, are very successful as far as cinematography is concerned.
Yeah, you know, it's like, I'm so happy I didn't have to watch this film as an assignment kind of thing. I'm so happy that I could just experience it first off and not be told about cinematography or anything while I'm watching it. Just watch it, because then I can be invoked the actual raw feelings that these shots give.
It's crazy.
It's genuinely like that of a painting or any sort of illustration for that matter. Such purposeful placement in the images, right? I don't know if I have the terminology correct, right? The balance of the shot of a person in the image and what's being focused upon, and the placements therein and the settings, right? Not only establish the tone and the proper tone, right? But is purposefully set in order to invoke certain feelings about what we're seeing. One of the biggest comparisons I could see is that in the beginning, when we have the family celebrating their new Wi-Fi for being paid for the pizza boxes, and they're looking out their little window that's so tiny and is actually the ground level, and they're watching a guy, you know, pee on the side of a building. That's their image. Later on in the film, we get a similar scene when they're drinking their drinks, celebrating of the jobs that they have gotten, and they're looking at the new houses, the rich houses, and their window is from the ground to the ceiling, and there's a beautiful garden in the background. Same ideas and same angles, different things being said, and it's all. And that's what I'm saying is that there has to be such a beautiful cooperation between the director and the cinematographer when it came to these scenes, because these things are just too purposeful. You don't see that in a lot of student films, by the way. And even I personally need to really focus and study on these things, because it can invoke a lot of feelings. But it also elevates what might seem like a simple scene into something really, really, really nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sense of, as an artist, they're always... The biggest issue that struggling artists have with creativity is you're not questioning yourself enough. And I think as a filmmaker, your question should be, how can this shot be different? How can this shot be better? And storyboarding is a huge part of that. I don't think it gets talked about enough, and I don't think they don't even release the storyboard. I wish they did. I wish every film had a storyboard or something in the
even if after a couple years.
I think the coolest one I've seen is Wes Anderson's Budapest Hotel. They did an entire animatic for the film, and I mean his visuals are through the roof. I mean, arguably his story is, I don't know, okay, but his visuals are insane. Like, that dude literally just makes a movie as like a painting. Each shot is a painting, and I think storyboarding plays such a huge role in that. And I'm sure they had a storyboard artist for this film, because every film does.
I mean, if you go into the behind the scenes, you'll find that, and I didn't think there was a single thing of CGI in this movie. Like, CGI? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
There's a lot.
To make the scenes that they are making, most of the buildings and the things we're looking at don't even exist. Not together. All right? These shots could not have been done with the way this building is designed. They either were CGIing literal whole entire parts of the set in order for the camera to both be here and there when switching back and forth. It's like, but wait a minute, there's a pillar there. You couldn't have made that shot. It's like, well, no, there's not a pillar there. Not when I'm moving it this way. Such as the ways the design of on the outside, you have a second floor and all that does not exist. The second floor does not exist in this manner. This house does not exist. Period. You know, they only make adjustments however the story needs it to be. It's awesome.
It's impressive.
Dude.
It's impressive.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and if I may speak to that, I've been working on an animated film recently, and my first approach to it was animating the entire scene 100%, everything perfect. And it was getting so tedious. And I stopped and I was like, well, let me set up the cameras to see if I actually need to animate everything. And it's actually funny how much you can hide with camera shots, you know. And like you said with this film, there wasn't an entire house set, you know. Everything that's practical is filmed in a way that makes you believe that it's not, that the whole thing is real.
Right.
And then to further that, they use the CG, they use the visual effects, which, as I heard some visual effects artists say, visual effects is most properly used when it enhances the story. Everything is about the story, by the way,
Right.
if you haven't gotten that yet. And visual effects is just another component of that. And the fact that you can watch this entire film and not even realize there's green screens and stuff
Right.
like that, and whatever else was CG'd, speaks to the fact that this isn't a showcase of computer power like Avengers Endgame might be.
Yeah, sure.
It's more of, hey, we need this to help the story along.
Right.
Let's
This
make
shot
let's
will
make it
invoke
help,
the
yeah.
proper image.
Exactly.
This shot will really give a good feeling, just even if it's just a little bit. And that's the
Yes.
thing. You know what's sad? You know what's really sad? Is
What
that
is
in my experience, when it comes to student films and short films that I've seen, you usually have one or the other. You either have a decent story and a director who really knows how to write a good story and have good old lines, maybe even good actors for all we know, but the cinematography just isn't there. It's like your shots are ruining what this scene could be. And oh man, I'm just looking at it right now. I'm looking at images on Google on Parasite,
beautiful, man.
seeing
You could
like
the still images you could harvest from this film. It's like
the
I'd hang it
simple
on my wall.
simple things like when even their dinner table, it has 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 seats at this table, but the two of them, the mother and the house maid, are just on one end of this entire table and the rest is empty, but the camera makes sure you see that, almost as if it's like, wow, look at how much extra they have. So unnecessary wealth that they don't even use. But look at it, right? It's so interesting, subconscious. Anyways, my point was that you either get a director that is really good with storytelling and good with the maybe even with the actors, but are not so good with the cinematography, or you'll have really good cinematographers who don't really have much of a story. And don't really have an interesting story to go off of. And I see that actually a lot, is that a lot of cinematographers who have really good shots, but it's just like, well, where's the story?
That's why the director and cinematographer are two separate people in major films.
It's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing.
But yeah, it's crazy to me because this movie won a plethora of Academy Awards. Congrats to them. But it wasn't even nominated for Best Cinematography. And I didn't see 1917 yet. 1917 did win.
Yeah.
Because of the long shot effect, which, whatever, I think it's overrated, but that's...
But isn't that fake anyways? It's not real.
It is fake. Well,
It's real.
The story is that they would leave cameras outside all night and then just come back the next day and keep going.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. No,
I
I saw
like
what they
a parlor trick to me. It's not actual good cinematography. It's just like, oh, let's do this trick and people love it and everyone's gonna, which worked.
Well, I haven't seen it, and it probably makes it a lot more personal if you don't do any cuts. So
yeah,
I could see that, like a simulation, if you will.
Well, another thing too about Parasite is there's a lot of, I don't want to say long cuts because they're not. A long cut is very long. But they're lengthier cuts than you might expect on, an American film per se, and it's a lot of shots where the camera slowly pans to one character and then slowly pans to another character, and you would think a lot of films where that is the case, it's boring.
Yeah.
But I think because this film is creative in its shots and everything else kind of works together as well, those shots actually make it more interesting. And I don't know if you noticed that, but to me that was exciting. I liked it.
Yeah, I could probably go all day. That's the beauty of this movie. You could probably go all day with all these awesome shots.
That's great.
It's weird. When I was younger, I'd be like, cinematography, what are you talking about? Right? As I've gotten older, it's just like, no, there's a nice experience when you can do these things right. And I can truly appreciate it. Kind of like with fine art. I think a lot of new fine artists miss some of these ideas. It's just like, oh, just make something that's very, very mysterious, right? It's like, well, no. Let's be deep about it. And if you can be deep about it, if you can make it multi-layered, you can have something really special here. And it makes people want to watch it again and again.
Yeah. Well, And I tell that to people all the time too. Like they ask me, like someone asked me the other day, "Do you like driving?" And I'm like, "Well, as I have gotten older, I enjoy driving more."
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh man, you act like you're about to die." And I'm like, "Well, no, you just things when you get older change." And yeah, I feel the same way. I never even considered cinematography when I was like 12. You know, I was just watching movies.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's the beauty of getting older. You start to see these things from different perspectives, and film should challenge you that way.
And there's nothing new under the sun, by the way. Back in the day, when people would buy paintings, you know, 1700s homes, that was the hoped for effect when it comes to complex paintings, is that you would look at it and you go, Mm-hmm. I hate to be like in The Sims.
Yeah.
And you could genuinely come back later and analyze it even more. And what's even more interesting is the idea that you're the only one who has it. There wasn't a million copies of the same painting. And so it was very interesting, and that's what movies can do today too, is that you come back to it and just go, interesting. Yeah. I'm surprised they were able to get so many of these shots. Even as I'm going through these Google images of these shots, it's like, yeah, they had to have had a whole team of cinematographers that were really on top of every shot. And like you said, they probably storyboarded this thing the whole way through. Way through.
Yeah, it's very... I think this movie is very good, mainly because of the cinematography. Yeah. I mean, I say that, and it sounds like what I'm saying is only the cinematography is good. I'm not saying that. I'm saying of all the good things, the cinematography is the greatest, in my opinion.
If the cinematography was different, and if the set pieces were different, I think it genuinely could be a worse movie.
Yeah,
and those things actually bring it to elevate it to being something good. And for any of those out there who might be studying film or wanting to become filmmakers, such as myself, that is a huge lesson, and and I won't forget it either, about how important and serious cinematography is. It's not just about the story. It's not about just putting people on camera. You need to think these through, because a good shot can propel you to greatness. A bad shot can turn you to normality, or average, or boring, or even worse, bad.
that was scary. Well, and if I may too, I'm taking a real estate class this week, and one of the things we talked about yesterday was listing homes and writing descriptions for the home. And my broker, who's teaching the class, said he quoted someone else who quoted someone else, and the quote was, "People won't remember what you say, they'll remember how you made them feel." And I think this movie captures that idea excellently, because the whole movie leaves you with a feeling. And I think even, you talked about set pieces, we didn't really dive too much into that, but the fact that everything revolves around this house creates this feeling. Like every time you're in this house, you're like, you associate it with this struggle. And it's interesting that everything is tied to this one object. And I think that idea of feeling over words is, important, and it really elevates this movie.
Yeah.
But at the same time too, and I don't know if we want to talk about this more, I think the dialogue in this film is exceptional. One of my favorite lines is when earlier on in the movie, there's so many good ones, but earlier on in the movie, the young son, who is the new tutor, we really need to write names down for this.
The reason why I didn't say the names is that they're actually they're not complicated. Well, no, they're shared, but it's a little complicated because I don't want to mispronounce them. And a lot of names are actually similar to other ones, such as in the Kim family, you have Kim Ki Taek.
Okay.
Kim Ki Taek is the name of the character. The Park family, you got Park Dong-ik, right?
Yes.
And the housemaid, that's the mother, isn't it? Chung Suk. And it's hard to even label it down, so usually I just go by the...
Yes. It is our cultural crutch, if you will. Anyway, the newly hired tutor, which is the son in the Kim family, is tutoring the young daughter, and it's this wonderful scene where she's taking the test, and he just like he grabs her hand, right, and then you're like, oh, what's he doing? And he's feeling her pulse, and he drops the beat, he drops the line, that when you take a test, it's like thrashing through a jungle. You don't. She was dwelling on question 23, and he said, well, if question 23 was question 1, you're done, because all of a sudden all your momentum is gone. He said, I don't care what the answer to question 23 is. I care that you're commanding this test and moving through it. And you're like, well, Joyo, why did you bring up such a small, insignificant thing that really doesn't reflect much on the whole movie? It's because that is what a good film does. Like, it parallels The Dark Knight, where you have this central theme, but then they drop in like these little nuggets strictly through dialogue that don't really relate to the rest of the film's story, but like it's actually helpful for just my daily life. Like, yes, that is very true when you take a test. And yes, that is a very well-spoken piece of dialogue. We looked at Fantastic Four last week, which had trash dialogue because it was just so predictable. But this one, it didn't feel like that. I don't know. What were your thoughts?
No, I think I agree. And it actually will create a more real environment when you add in little things. I mean, you need a little bit of a proof to show that he's actually being a successful tutor, but to the audience, and he's not just there. But, you know, it adds to the reality of the situation when you can just give them some lines here and there that aren't necessary to the plot, but add a little bit of a charm to make it a little bit more real, a little bit more personal. You're listening in on him making the analogy, and you can tell he's probably making the analogy while he's saying it. Yeah. So, well, Joseph, what would you say you think is the underlying moral? I know we may have touched on it a little bit already. But what do you think is the moral that we got to take away from a movie like this?
Well, it's easy and complex at the same time. This movie, I like to compare it to The Dark Knight, because I think The Dark Knight also touches on a lot of social issues, and it does it in the same way this movie does, in that it makes many points instead of one large point. But I think if I can tie it all together, it's towards the ending, after the flood. There's two key moments that I think capture it for me. And it's you mentioned it earlier, that dialogue where the father says, don't make a plan, because the plan will always fail and you'll always be disappointed. But if you don't make a plan, you can't be disappointed. And that's something oddly that I've been hearing a lot lately. I just finished reading The Fountainhead, which if you guys haven't read it, you should read it. Not everyone's going to like it, but it's a good book. And one of the characters makes the statement that I am not going to desire anything, because the world always seeks to take away your desires, and then it'll leave you in this constant state of chasing things you don't have, which I think is a major trap. I think it's a major trap of a lot of wealthy people who are constantly chasing a higher figure instead of just reflecting that, wow, they have a lot. I mean, think about it. Why don't people like Jeff Bezos just retire when their income from interest money alone could pay their bills ad infinitum? You know,
right?
It's this constant desire of I need more, I need to satisfy, and it seems like a point in the movie where we're just like really sad, but at the same time, it's like, what is sad about that? Why do we have to have 5-year plans? Why do we have to have 10-year plans? Why can't we just live in the moment?
Right.
You know, and I don't think that's the main message of the movie. I think the main message of the movie is clearly a very trite one, in that greed never satisfies and it only tears apart.
Well,
but then let me just say this one more thing.
Go ahead, please.
I'm talking
please,
so much. I'm like,
no, you're great.
Everyone in the audience is like, wow, this Joyo guy does not shut up.
No, that's not true. I thought you were done. That's why I was about to speak, but I didn't want to interrupt you. Go.
Well, I appreciate that you don't believe it, but our audience's members are like, they're gonna vote me out. This is gonna be the Brandon Cummings Spoiled Onions podcast.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to tell me, hey Brandon, you're gonna have all your podcast at 2. Just reminding you.
I'll set it up. I'll set up the whole thing, and then you just talk.
Now go. No, Joseph.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. the thing I liked the most was when the kid has the rock. He has a pet rock. We're bringing the 70s back.
The pet rock.
He's
funny.
feeding this pet rock. No, he has this rock that's
Stand-up comedian of the year, folks. I'm kidding.
It's a very comedic film at points,
Thank you.
and then it's weird at others. But he has this pet rock, if you will, the rock that is supposed to symbolize fortune and good wealth. And towards the end of the film, it's literally I want to say it's the only thing we're shown that's saved from their flooded house. Although they have clothes, so I'm assuming they saved other things. But he's holding this rock while they're laying in this courtyard sleeping with like tons of other people sleeping around them. And the dad goes, "Why do you still have this rock?" And then the son says, "It keeps clinging to me." And I'm just like, whoa. Like I'm not sure if this hit anyone else, but that one hit me more than any line in that movie. And it's because a lot of times the things in life that trip us up the most are the things that, even though we recognize that it's bad, and even though we recognize that it's hurting us, we just can't get rid of it. Almost like it just has a mind of its own. And I if you read the Bible at all, that's something it discusses, where it talks about the old flesh. I'm getting philosophical, theological here, but
Hey.
it's saying that it almost has a mind of its own, and that it's trying to get you to do things, what Paul would say, that you would not do in your own logical mind. It's like the idea of, I'm on a diet, yet I eat this candy bar. Why? It's almost like some other part of me is taking control. And I think in this movie, that part is the greedy part.
Yeah.
This family just wants to be happy, be comfortable, but they're losing sight of that in this desire to have more. So
yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it just reminded me of something huge, which I'll make what I think the moral is, or at least a big moral of it all. In that, I think you touched it there, and how the happiness is not dependent on the financial wealth.
Yes.
Yet the financial wealthy are so concerned in keeping up as much of their wealth as possible that they'll even withhold it from others in order to keep hold of it, worried that they'd lose it, thinking that that's the source of their happiness.
Mm-hmm.
When the character's name is Kiwoo, but when he goes back to his house and he finds the rock, which is supposed to bring about good fortune, right, great fortune, the rock is floating in the water. Now, real rocks do not float. It's a fake rock, because it's floating in the water. The rock, which is supposed to bring about good fortune, is floating on the surface of the water, and yet he holds on to it even still. There is no good fortune coming out from this rock, and yet he keeps on clinging to it nonetheless, almost as if it's representative of that. This struggle to have more financially, they think is somehow going to bring about the satisfaction in life. And they're wrong, just as the rich people are wrong. And that the people who were all the way at their lowest point, like those who were in the basement, that man was smiling. That man was perfectly happy, even thankful to the rich man for letting him even use the basement. And those two are just entirely happy just being together. And I think the director, if he's trying to say anything in that, the most heartwarming thing he can say is that to the rich people who are so greedy that they're not allowing an environment of the redistribution of wealth and trying to be withholding so that the class system says that it is, first of all, you should know that this wealth is not bringing you happiness. Even the father would say, the poor father keeps asking the rich father, "You must really love your wife, don't you?" And he doesn't actually fully love his wife. He brings about these luxurious things in life, but he doesn't actually like them. He just has been taught that this is what happiness is, and he's not. The thing is that if you could let that go, then those who are perhaps innocent may avoid levels of misery if we would allow ourselves to actually pursue righteous endeavors of happiness, which is in the connections and the relations that we have with one another and even the stranger. And I suppose that's the moral.
No, that was good. I forgot. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I thought the same thing. That scene where the dad is talking to the dude in the basement, and he's just like, "How can you live down here?" And he's like, I'm happy. And it's like, it's so weird. Why are you happy in a basement? It doesn't matter. Why? Why do we care what society tells us should make us happy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can be happy in a basement. And, you know, the saying is you choose to be happy. And sometimes it depends on my mood. Sometimes I believe that's true. Sometimes I don't.
Uh-huh.
But I think ultimately it might be better said that we create our own ideas of what make us happy. Yeah. And the question is, are we going to actually be true to ourselves? Or are we going to let other people determine what will make us happy, you know?
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that was good. That was a good moral.
Yeah. So in the end, what would you give as a rating for Parasite?
Okay.
From a scale of 1 to 1,027.
Oh. Okay. A little random, but
no. 1 to 100.
I think the number in my head is 87, and I think I'm going to stick with that.
Interesting.
If I can sum up my opinion in one line, it's that this film is strong in its plot, its cinematography, and cohesively tells a story, while sometimes weakening in the latter half due to craziness.
Yeah. I give it a 92.
Okay.
Because
interesting.
I don't think it's the most perfect thing that's ever happened to me. I mean, any sort of bad feeling I could have just doesn't really mean much of anything. It doesn't even factor, I suppose. But I can recognize that maybe there are imperfections here and there. And if there are any imperfections, then I'm not going to give it 100. But it most certainly is an A. This is a really, really great film. I do think it's worthy of being a film of the year. I don't know what every other film existed throughout all these other foreign countries. But I guess the thing I'm most happy about is that it shows that foreigners, you know, even though cinematography may have had great roots in America, that the foreign countries have developed themselves to a position for where they too can have a say as to the direction and the inspirations of the cinematic field.
Yes, and it'd be ignorant to think they didn't. Anyway,
yeah.
But that averages out to a 89.5, which
Wow.
I guess we'll just round up to 90. So solid 90.
Wow.
Yeah, that's certified fresh onions.
That's a fresh onion right
That
there.
yeah.
That's
insane.
a fresh onion. Cut that up.
Yeah.
Make you cry. Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. I love this movie, and I hope you guys have loved it too. If you didn't like it, if you hated it, if you thought, how dare they have even put this in this podcast, please put it in the comments. And if the director of Parasite is listening right now, those are some good shots.
Yeah, we're going to have this episode translated into Korean so that our Korean viewers, or listeners,
yes,
if you will, may be able to comment on what they think.
Right.
But yeah, seriously, guys, head on to the YouTube and leave a comment. Tell us what you would like us to watch next. And if you are down and listening on the iTunes, feel free to leave us a review. 5 stars is ideal.
Yes.
But yeah, we've appreciated having you.
All right, guys, we'll see you around. Tune in next time in the Spoiled Onion Show. Good day. Good day.
Bye.